Hi Chris, really good to be here today with you. Thanks for taking the time out of your schedule. I know that you're really busy here. It'd be good if you could explain to us, to our viewers as well, what ULEMCo is, who ULEMCo is, and what it is that you're doing in the hydrogen sector.
Yeah, of course, and thanks for having me. So ULEMCo, we specialise in the integration of hydrogen systems and technologies, predominantly onto vehicles, but we're also doing some stationary applications as well. We believe that there's going to be a really big role for hydrogen to play in the decarbonisation sector and the road to net zero, particularly in those hard to decarbonise areas, such as heavy duty transport and construction and things like that. We'll work primarily with our core technology, which is a dual fuel offering, which is kind of like a hybrid between your diesel and hydrogen. But we also do a lot of R&D work as well, with 100% hydrogen combustion engines, hydrogen fuel cells and EV technologies.
Yeah, okay. So just firstly, you mentioned a couple of sectors that are like hard to decarbonise, or hard to abate sectors. So you mentioned construction and other things. Why are those considered hard to abate?
The main reason really is obviously with a lot of sustainable equipment is trying to go to the EV or down the EV route. One of the things that you find is those big pieces of equipment that require a lot of energy can start to become issues with the size of the batteries that you need for them to run their duty cycles. And then also you've got the issue of potentially long charging times, whereas hydrogen can help negate that with refueling times being a lot shorter, which means that it's more of less of a change really going towards from your diesel over to a sustainable fuel, and you don't have to try and factor in logistically trying to charge vehicles or bits of equipment for long periods of time.
So that transition phase from sort of conventional fuel that they're using now, fossil fuels, diesel or petrol, over to hydrogen is much more of a seamless process, and the downtime that those vehicles may have is less with hydrogen because of the refueling times than it would have with charging with batteries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. The last thing that we want to do is, advertise this new and sustainable fuel, but it results in customers having to completely change their logistics plans and how they refuel. So we want to try and make it as efficient as possible, but also make it as smooth a transition as possible.
Okay, that's good. So that sort of explains the sectors that ULEMCo are not necessarily targeting, but more heavily involved in just by the projects that are coming along in the UK right now. So you mentioned the dual fuel system and some other R&D projects, but the dual fuel system, it'd be good to share what that is.
Yeah. So that's like our core or staple technology. So that's productionized, and we've got that on over 100 vehicles in the UK at the moment. And the idea behind it is it allows our customers to implement hydrogen and start to save in terms of the CO2 emissions without being fully reliant on hydrogen as well. As the infrastructure grows, there's sometimes problems with production, refueling, things like that. And quite often the vehicles that our customers are looking at trying to implement hydrogen or hydrogen enable, these vehicles can tend to be very important assets, and they can't really afford to have them, down waiting for a refueler to be fixed or waiting for another hydrogen shipment. So the technology behind the dual fuel system it's essentially hydrogen injectors that are installed on the inlet manifold, so they mix with the air pre-combustion, and then that allows us to displace a small amount of diesel. So when I say a small amount, it's typically around 30%. So we say you'll then in turn get a 30% saving at your tailpipe in terms of CO2 as well. So our customers find a reduction in diesel use when they're using the hydrogen system, and in turn obviously you get your CO2 savings.
Yes, that's really good. So it's twofold really. So it's that that saving on fuel because of the displacement of the hydrogen from the diesel, and then the CO2 savings as well. But then the added sort of selling point of the dual fuel system is that you've got that added redundancy of if there's no hydrogen available because the infrastructure or the refueling station's unavailable at that time for that customer, the vehicle can operate totally normally on diesel?
Yeah, absolutely. So if for whatever reason they don't have the hydrogen, or even if there's a problem with the hydrogen system, that'll shut down and allow the vehicle just to run normally on diesel. So you don't lose the capabilities of the vehicle. It can still go about doing its daily duties. And then obviously if the hydrogen comes or the problem's fixed or whatever, then they can carry on running on dual fuel. We see it as a sort of a stepping stone and integration technology. So it'll allow customers to basically see how logistically they will integrate hydrogen into their fleets. And it also allows them to do it on a smaller scale as well without being fully reliant on it. Just while obviously, as we mentioned, the infrastructure grows.
Yeah, so it's a really nice transition phase to see how they're going to decarbonise their fleets in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might even be a case that this technology is continuing to use, in 20, 30 years' time when you've got those few applications that really can't shift to fully electric, fuel cell, whatever, for whatever reason, and you might still need that backup of diesel to be there, but you obviously want to look at trying to reduce your carbon footprint.
Okay, and can this dual fuel system be fitted on pretty much any application, vehicle, static?
Yeah, pretty much any application with a diesel engine. Primarily what we say is we look for Euro 6 engines or, stage 5 engines, the newest engines, because they already adhere to your low emissions in terms of air quality. But yeah, basically any diesel engine that we can communicate with, really, so via that's electronically controlled. Okay,
that's really interesting. So how does the process work? So I'm a fleet operator. I've got 10 refuse vehicles, for example. I'm considering battery, I'm considering hydrogen. I want to come to you guys to try the dual fuel system. Is it something that's available today? Can you do it in a short period? What's the process?
Yeah. I mean, we're able to do it quite quickly. The main things that we're dependent on is finding a space on the vehicle to store the hydrogen tanks. That can sometimes be a challenge depending on the makeup of the vehicle. And then also just the lead times on some parts, namely hydrogen tanks, valves and things like that. The actual conversion process only takes 1 to 2 weeks, so the customer will only be without the vehicle for 1 to 2 weeks. So yeah, it's a relatively pain-free process, pretty quick, and quite a cost-effective way of implementing hydrogen in comparison to fuel cell technologies and EV technologies at the moment.
Yeah, and something you can do now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
No, it's really interesting. Thanks for that, Chris.
Yeah, no problem at all.